Chest up, shoulders back. This is Revival Fitness. And be sure to get your program today, guys, if you haven't already. Please start making some real gains. Stop wasting so much time in the gym. I'm begging you. But when I started this channel, home gyms were all the rage. You guys remember what was happening back then. It seems like gyms across the world have been back open for a while now. No real restrictions. But in a lot of cases, you may be sick of the public gym for a lot of reasons. So no matter where you fall on the money and space continuum, I present to you the official home gym equipment tier list. No, I'm not going to mention every single thing you could possibly buy because this video would never end, but I think I broke them down into pretty distinct categories for the most part. One thing I want to note before we dive into this, guys, at least in the United States, our next presidential election is in 2024. Those of you who are in the know that during the election year here, that's when things tend to get pretty crazy in a lot of ways, and it's currently summertime. People are not preoccupied with their home gyms. They're busy traveling on vacations. So I would encourage you, even if you can only get a few things going right now, this is a very good time to jump into the home gym market while everything is relatively calm, especially leading into this holiday season of this year, and God knows what might happen next year. So if you're looking to buy things for your home gym, guys, or even just get one started from total scratch, check out these things on Amazon. I'm going to have my Amazon shop linked down in the description and the pinned comment. But bookmark these pages, check back periodically. Every now and then the price will drop by a fair amount, and then you can snag these things. So starting off, we're going to talk about the basic barbell. So the standard barbell you're going to come across in almost every gym weighs about 20 kilograms or 44 pounds. Depending on the brand in the United States, they may say 44 pounds, they may round up to 45, but that is the standard weight, and they are what's called Olympic bars, meaning they have 2-inch diameter sleeves. So it's very tempting, guys. I know if you check online, you're going to see a lot of cheap bars that are only $100 or so. They may be Olympic diameter, but even so, be sure to read the labeling and the description of these bars before you buy them. What a lot of guys end up doing is buying the cheap barbell right off the bat, and even if they're newer to lifting, they'll say, oh well, the max weight capacity is 300 pounds, I'm not going to be lifting 300 pounds for a while. Well, first of all, you actually might be. If you train seriously and you're dedicated to it, you could easily get to a 300 plus pound deadlift in under a year in some cases, if not even sooner depending on your own genetics and everything. But no matter what, if you buy these cheap bars, you're going to outgrow them eventually, and then they're going to end up bending and twisting, maybe even breaking. Then you're going to have to buy a higher quality bar anyway. There are very good quality bars now, guys, on Amazon. The one I'm showing on the screen is by Xmark. These are under $200. Extremely highly rated, very high weight capacity, great knurling and everything, typical power bars. These are fantastic. Just buy these right off the bat. So barbell has to be in the essential list. Now, following the barbell are the things you have to put on the barbell, the plates. Unsurprisingly, these are going to go up in the essential tier as well. There are 3 primary types of weight plates that you can purchase. Cast iron or steel, plastic, or bumper plates. They're going to be larger in diameter than typical cast iron or steel. And third is going to be calibrated. These are the really colorful ones you see in the special powerlifting gyms. If you're not into powerlifting and being really meticulous with the total weight you're using, you don't really need to spend the money on calibrated plates. But if you can afford it, you're going to be getting the most precise measurement possible. Most typical plates you get are mass-produced. The calibrated ones are individually weighed. I think they will come with a certificate from the manufacturer guaranteeing the weight plus or minus like 2 grams or something. It's extremely concise. So in terms of cost effectiveness, typical cast iron or steel plates, some of these may be plastic coated too, or coated in some other material as well. Those are usually going to be the cheapest. If you are lifting though in an area where you need to be quiet, maybe you've got sleeping children in the morning, maybe you live in an apartment complex, you have to keep the noise down, whatever the case might be, then I would go with bumper plates if you plan on doing any serious heavy lifting off the ground. So Pendlay rows, deadlifts, Olympic lifting, if you're just going to be dropping weights in general, bumper plates are going to best suppress the noise, far more so than the other types, And the thing with them as well, they can be used outside on even pavement and concrete. Bumper plates, they can be dropped on those surfaces, and they're not going to damage the floor or the weights. I would start with 45s and 25s in American units roughly, but it is important to have smaller ones too. So you want to make sure you have 5s and 10s, even 2.5s and even smaller micro plates if you want to get those for lighter stuff like curls, maybe skull crushers, things of that nature. Keep this in the back of your head for something later on in this video, but having a wide range of plates is going to be to your benefit, ranging from very small to very large. So we've got the bar and the plates. Now we need somewhere to mount these things. And that's going to be a squat rack or a power rack. Has to go in the essential tier. Now, the squat rack is essentially going to be the centerpiece of your home gym, guys. Sort of like the fireplace in the living room. If you don't have one of these in a home gym, I don't know what you're doing. I mean, you're very much limiting yourself. You're going to be delegated to pretty much only floor press for the bench. I guess you could power clean the bar up to your shoulders to do overhead press, but you're not going to be able to really get it on your back in any reliable fashion, so just get a rack. Most racks nowadays, too, come with or have options to have attachments for pull-up bars on the top. Sometimes they are multi-angled, too, which is a benefit. A lot of them, too, are going to have attachments for dip bars you can put inside the holes. Keep in mind when it comes to squat racks, guys, pay attention here. You need to measure your ceiling and your flooring space, but especially the ceiling. So go on the website or the description, whatever one you're looking at buying. Check what they say the maximum height is on the posts. I would give yourself at least 3 to 5 inches of clearance in your own space just to be safe. So measure your own space too and then compare them. But if you have a ceiling that is, say, 85 inches and the squat rack is 84 inches, you might be cutting it a little bit too close. One of the worst things that can happen is you order a squat rack, you take it all out of the box, disassemble it, put it together, you spend all this time on your hands and knees turning screws and all this stuff, and then it doesn't fit. That is not going to be fun, and it's really not going to be fun to return. These companies are getting pretty creative too with these racks. The one you can see on the screen here is by Fitness Reality on Amazon. It includes an entire lat pull-down attachment inside of the rack itself. And a lot of them are going to have other attachments too, so be sure to browse all of the options. One thing to keep in mind though, no matter which rack you get, if it does not come specifically with safety arms, buy the safety arms. Now the next thing on the list, and I should have probably put this first in the order of this video, but as expected, it's very overlooked by a lot of people. That is flooring. It's very common for people to build a little home gym right on top of their hardwood floor. The only exception when it comes to flooring could be carpet, but even then that's not totally in the clear. Depending on the type of carpet that you're on top of, a lot of the times the weights and the squat rack and all these other heavy things, they're going to start sinking into the carpet itself, causing indents. That could be an issue for your footing too. If you're trying to lift on carpet, it's hard to really press your feet into the ground and get a good grip. The best flooring you can buy for a serious gym is horse stall mats. But these horse stall mats are unmovable, they're unbreakable. Once you roll them out on the ground, they're not going anywhere. Weights are not going to indent into them. Contrast that with what a lot of people do. They buy these cheap little puzzle piece mats, and they try to put their squat rack and bench and weights on top of these. A lot of the times they can start to slide around if there's any sort of gap going on. You don't want to walk out one day with a heavy squat bar on your back, and your little cheap flooring twists, and you twist your ankle and fall and hurt yourself. Buy the quality stuff from day one. It is well worth the price. This is what I got for my old home gym, guys. I was repeatedly on a weekly basis dropping 400 plus pound deadlifts on these horse stall mats. I was kind of worried that it was going to break the hardwood that was underneath. When I finally moved out and I lifted up the horse stall mat, the hardwood was totally fine. So we've got the barbell, the plates, the squat rack, and the flooring. There's one other item I would consider absolutely essential in a home gym, and that is a bench. But not just any bench, a heavy-duty, adjustable bench that goes into an incline too. And this falls in line with a lot of the things mentioned in this video already. Buy quality right off the bat, guys. I'm not saying you have to spend $1,000 on some of these extreme heavy-duty benches, but there are great benches on Amazon. such as the one from Rep Fitness you can see on the screen here. This is extremely high quality. It has complete back support, tons of notches for the incline angle, and it's going to last you forever, and it's also very portable thanks to wheels. It's very tempting to go onto Amazon and you see some of these cheap little benches for $100, and they might even have good reviews from like soccer moms, in general, guys new to lifting who are lifting 20-pound dumbbells like, oh man, it really works well for me, I can do decline push-ups on it. Once again, guys, this is the context of serious lifting. If you're going to be using an incline bench, or even a bench press in general, without serious back support on the main part of the padding, there's a very good chance down the line for you, it could break. I don't think you want to be there when it does. So the one I decided to purchase myself 2 years ago, I think at this point, is by this brand. You can see it on the screen, called U10. This is a heavy-duty bench. Compared to the Rep one I showed a minute ago, I would say it's definitely not as high quality, totally speaking, but for the price point, this is as sturdy of an adjustable bench as I've been able to find. Now, once all the essentials are taken care of, and a lot of guys will buy these before they even buy a lot of the stuff in the essential tier, it is dumbbells. And when it comes to these, people usually only think about two options. There are the pre-made dumbbells, and they'll usually buy a set of them, or you can get the adjustable Bowflex style dumbbells. Those are definitely going to save you a lot of space compared to getting a bunch of pre-made sets. Even then, those are both going to be pretty darn expensive, no matter how you're doing it. A lot of the Bowflex I see, maybe up to $450 or $550. They usually range up to about 50 or 55 pounds or so. So once again, depending on the exercise, you're probably going to clear those in a relatively moderate time frame. You're going to basically grow out of them, depending on the exercise that you're doing with the Bowflex. So you could spend money on getting a whole nother set of heavier Bowflex, which are going to be even more expensive. You could buy even more pre-made dumbbells. Most people are going to be totally out of space at that point. Or you could do the third option most people don't think about, and I think it's a no-brainer: buy loadable dumbbell handles. If you recall earlier in the plate section, I talked about why you want to have a good range of smaller plates. The loadable dumbbell handles are the reason why. As long as you have heavy-duty clips you can put on the ends of the handles so the weights don't fall off, and that's not very hard to find. Those are pretty cheap too. These are perfect. First of all the things mentioned, they take up the least total amount of space, even compared to the Bowflex. Second of all, they're going to be the cheapest option by far. You have 45s. Those aren't really going to be suited for dumbbell handles, but if you have smaller 25s, a lot of 10s, a lot of 5s, a lot of 2.5s, and even lower than that, most people can get up to well over 100 pounds on their loadable dumbbells with a lot of smaller plates. And while these might be a little bit of a pain to set up because they're so much more clunky than pre-made dumbbells, the overall price savings you're going to get, I think, far outweighs the little bit of discomfort when setting them up to use. So I would put dumbbells in the perfect addition category. I don't think they're essential. Using just a bar and your body weight can take you pretty far if you want to go far with it, but they are a perfect addition in the sense that they open up a lot of opportunities for different movements. They can take stress off of the wrist, the elbows, other parts of the body too. Now next up, as you can see behind me, we're going to talk about specialty bars. The two most popular specialty bars I think most people will get, at least initially, are going to be the trap bar and the safety squat bar. You also could look into a Swiss bar, also called a football bar. It's basically a multi-grip bar. Sometimes they're all neutral, sometimes they're all angled, sometimes it's a mixture, but the overall crux of specialty bars is that, kind of similar to dumbbells, they're going to alleviate pressure from the common problem areas most people have. You can find a lot of solid trap bars on Amazon at this point for under $200. A lot of them have very good reviews. It's more so a matter of finding one that is going to arrive to you in a timely fashion. Be sure to check the reviews for shipping. Some of these cheaper companies will ship these things with very suspect packaging. They'll just kind of throw some stuff around them. By the time you get the bar, it might be bent. So be sure to check the reviews for that. Safety squat bars, I think you can buy a Titan one on Amazon, but some of these bigger bars you may have to go directly to bigger sites like Rogue or Elite FTS or Titan or Kabuki, kind of those name brands like that. But even so, most of these specialty bars are not terribly expensive if you buy the base version in the grand scheme of things. So while specialty bars are not ultimately essential, I would put them as a perfect addition type of thing. Even if you just get one or two of these, if I had to pick, I would go with the SSB and the trap bar myself, with the Swiss bar coming in at a close third. Now, on the topic of specialty bars, I guess you could call this the original one, the Easy Bar. Now, I have one of these myself, guys. You can usually find them on Amazon for relatively cheap, under $100 for a solid one. I will say, though, my opinion of the Easy Bar in recent months has definitely went down. I don't dislike it necessarily, but thinking about doing curls with it, you can do skull crushers with it, I guess pullovers. Otherwise, it's kind of limited in its application. I guess you could do rows with it if you need to, but even then, the bar is probably not going to hold up too well once you're pretty strong at those. I've been thinking about it. There's only a handful of real exercises that you're going to be doing with the Easy Bar, and in most of those cases too, I think dumbbells are ultimately going to do the job about just as well, if not even better. So an Easy Bar is a nice little addition to have, but really, I was going to put it in the worth having category, but I might put it under skippable. So the Easy Bar is cool, but it's just kind of like, whatever. Now in that same vein are kettlebells. Now, kettlebells are always trendy somehow in fitness for two main reasons. One, they're always innately tied to functional training. I don't know what it is about so many trainers and people that work out. They have this weird obsession about kettlebells just having these mythical benefits. Like, they work your stabilizer muscles so much more, and they work your core. And I don't know, I guess they're more replicable to normal things you pick up compared to barbells and dumbbells and stuff, even though I think that's really a faulty argument. The second reason is Joe Rogan uses kettlebells. So tons of bros want to replicate Joe Rogan, and they want to work out in their home gym with kettlebells like him. They can push them and make crazy faces and stuff. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's just really limited application when you think about the fact that dumbbells can do almost every single thing a kettlebell can, just way better. You cannot train your upper body nearly as effectively with kettlebells compared to dumbbells, nor the lower body for that matter. The kettlebells are going to be hanging down lower than the dumbbells. That can interfere with the range of motion. Kettlebells are very expensive. They're going to take up a lot of space, similar to pre-made dumbbells, if you want to buy a lot of them. If you're going to go for a kettlebell, similar to the dumbbells, guys, I would get a kettlebell handle. You can see on the screen here. You can load plates onto this and then put a clip at the end of it. It's going to serve the same exact purpose as a typical kettlebell. But otherwise, these things, I think, are overrated for the most part. Granted, most people in gyms will never touch them. They're kind of things that just sit around and people might use them because they look cool and stuff. The whole functional thing, they might start a little kettlebell phase. It's inevitably going to end. Nothing against kettlebells, man, but they just don't really bring a whole lot to the table, tangibly speaking. Totally skippable. Now next are resistance bands. Now once again, we're into serious size and strength here. You're not going to get big and strong legitimately only using resistance bands. I don't care what anybody else tells you. But the real benefit to bands, to me, is twofold. First of all, they're not very expensive. Of all the things on this list, they are among the absolute cheapest. On Amazon, you can find a quality pack of variable resistance bands, maybe 4 to 6 in the same pack, for $30 to $40, sometimes even lower. Now, whenever I say quality, guys, I mean bands like you can see on the screen here. I'm not referring to these extremely little cheap ones with the crappy handles attached to them. They look like wet spaghetti noodles. Or even these ones. You know, women like to put these around their legs and do fire hydrants or butterfly kicks or all the stuff for their side booty or whatever. You can go for those if you want, but I'm primarily talking about the ones that you could even incorporate into some of your lifts via accommodating resistance. So there's that aspect to it if you are among the dynamic effort crowd and you do conjugate. Only a very small percentage of you are going to understand that reference, but there's that method with the bands. And I think one of the biggest reasons that bands are so beneficial too is the prehab and rehab and mobility stuff that they allow you to do. There's way too many possibilities to outline here, but you can find online drills and stretches and stuff for almost any tight area of your body, a problem area, maybe some pain, or limited range of motion. And one of the other biggest benefits to bands, I think I said 2 things and maybe I'm on 3 now, I don't know. They're extremely portable. So of all the things mentioned on this list, bands are pretty much the only thing you can at least reliably throw in your backpack, throw in your duffel bag, throw in your travel bag, and fly or drive or go on a boat, on a train, whatever. You can take these with you anywhere you go, and they're not going to replicate normal free weights, of course, but they're a great thing to do in a pinch, even just if you're on vacation for a couple weeks and want to maintain some muscle mass. In addition to general calisthenics, bands are a great addition to have. You barely notice them if you're not using them, but in times that you don't have them, you really wish that you did. So given all of those factors, we're going to have to put bands in the perfect addition category. So what bands are essentially replacing in a lot of ways in the standard gym are cables. So the next order of business here is the cable station. Now, depending on the use that you're looking for in your cable station, you could go for one or two. There's a good amount of stuff that you can do with cable stations as accessories or isolation movements that are going to take a lot of stress off of the bigger muscles in your body. You can also do lat pull downs with these. If yours comes with the seat, that's a bonus, or you could just sit on the floor. And of course, you can use these to do the iliac fiber pull down. Based on what I've seen on Amazon, a quality single cable station is around $200 at the current point. Once again, be sure to check back for deals and price drops on those. The thing with these now, a lot of these modern brands of squat racks, some of these may include a cable station either attached to the rack or as sort of like a bonus package, kind of a 2-in-1 thing that comes with it. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I would say getting a plate-loaded one of these is going to be without question cheaper than getting one that has a weight stack. Now keep in mind too, the cheaper option would be to buy one of these things that you can throw over a pull-up bar, and you kind of make your own little pulley system. The absolute cheapest would probably be to jerry-rig your own pulley system. I know some of you guys are very crafty with home improvement and stuff. You could go to Home Depot and build one of these in 20 minutes. I'm not that savvy myself. I know some of you guys are. But in any case, if you're going to do the kind of jerry-rig pulley system, or just anything that is not really confined to a set machine, be sure it's not too close to the wall. I've seen a lot of reports of people who buy these, and they attach plates, and it starts to swing back and forth. It could crash into the wall, break your window, just become a little bit uneven when you're using it. So be sure to, once again, double check your space. I'll be nice and put it under the worth having category. I'd say it's on the line of that and skippable depending on your preferences, but it is definitely nice to have a cable station if needed, just to be able to have access to a lot of other exercises that you really have no other way to do otherwise. I just realized this too with the cable station. We're going to talk about machines coming up, but if you don't have the space or money for bigger machines, which a lot of you don't, you can even do things like hamstring curls or leg extensions on the cable machine, depending on how you set up the seat in front of it or the bench, and all you need is really ankle straps. So from that vantage point, I'm going to keep it in worth having. So we just mentioned machines. That's going to be the next category. This is going to be very broad. I have it listed as just assorted machines. There's way too many to outline individually here, but your options could be a leg press, a hack squat, a belt squat. Those are kind of the bigger lower body machines. Leg extension and hamstring curl. Ideally, if you're going to go for something like that, you can find a machine that's a hybrid of both of those, as opposed to getting one of the cheap-ass ones that comes with the cheap benches. There's a lot of options here. We're going to include the Smith machine as its own option next. In terms of general assorted machines, you have to put these in the sandbox mode category. There's a few machines coming up that I would consider more specialty machines. You're not going to find in most gyms, but broad scope, this is for the rich people. So the one machine I think that really stands out from the bigger conglomerate is the Smith machine, simply because it's so versatile compared to all the other ones. The thing with the Smith machines, I've seen some on Amazon for under $1,000. Be sure to check the reviews because most Smith machines in gyms are not cheap. They are pieces of machinery, there's hydraulics involved, right? They're not going to be something you can just drop a few $100 on and have something quality. For that reason, the Smith machine is going to go in sandbox mode. Now, some of the more specialty machines, these are for the lower body. We're going to start with the GHR, or the glute ham raise. Now, you guys have probably seen the home gym bros and the calisthenics bros are obsessed with Nordic curls for the hamstrings. They basically worship this exercise. 99% of people cannot do a single rep of this exercise, with the machine or without, Most people can't even do a full range of motion controlled negative, let alone a negative and a positive. Take that into account, then also think about how these are so big, they take up so much space. In the grand scheme of things, these are not worth having, simply because you can still do the Nordic curl, which the GHR is basically just a suspended Nordic curl. It's going to be easier on the knees because of the padding. You have more ways to adjust it. But what you can do instead is buy this. This is a portable Nordic strap. You can basically latch this onto any door or sturdy surface, and you can put your knees on a pad. Just like that, you can do Nordic curls to your heart's desire and spend 40 to 50 bucks, not 500 to 900. Now, the other major lower body machine is the reverse hyperextension. These are becoming much more prominent in powerlifting and strength style gyms. The general commercial gym, you're probably still not going to see these. You might not for a number of years still. General commercial gyms are just so far behind the times, broadly speaking, but this device is very good if you can afford it. Not only is this exercise excellent to build the glutes and the low back to an extent, it's widely noted for its therapeutic benefits for the low back. So if you are very tired from a lot of squatting, deadlifting, etc., this exercise puts your back in traction, as it's called. If you are an older lifter especially, or somebody with a history of back pain or injuries, if you can get access to one of these things, it's absolutely worth getting. Now that said, it does take up a fair amount of space, especially the bigger models that you buy, and they're not exactly cheap. So I'm a huge fan of the reverse hyper. I do have to put it in sandbox mode given most people's circumstances, but once again, if you have the money and the space for one of these things, go for it. So the reverse hyperextension is based off of the typical hyperextension, and you can find one of the hyperextension benches for relatively cheap at this point. We keep going back to the topic of isolating the lower body though, primarily the hamstrings. So if you're doing the typical home gym routine, squats, deadlifts, bench press, maybe good mornings, rows, etc., your low back is under a lot of stress, a lot of axial loading. You have to really keep that managed. And if you don't have a cable station, and you really can't do any sort of Nordic curl for any appreciable volume yet, which is the vast majority of you, whether you can admit that or not, a hyperextension is a great alternative, at least for the time being, to work on the hamstrings and get a good stretch in them without having to worry about those other variables interfering. So while the hyperextension does have pretty limited uses, I think those uses are very important. I might have to say it's worth having just because of the total footprint and the cost. So I would say if you can afford the hyperextension, it's definitely worth having, primarily if you don't have a lot of these other options at your disposal. Now we're almost finished up here. We have the pull-up bar and the dip bars. I'm going to include them in the same category here just because if you have one, you might as well have the other. So assuming you buy a high quality rack, these should largely be taken care of, at least the pull-up bar. If you don't have dip bars that you can find or fit, or if they're very expensive as an add-on, I think the Titan dip bars I got were $90 or so. Most of the parallel bars you're going to find on Amazon at this point are probably going to be $50 to $80 give or take. So I'd say a pull-up bar is essential, even if you can't do them yet. Just work on eccentrics or band assisted. I'm going to put that in the worth having category though, because this is going to be very incumbent on the rack that you get. I'm going to put the dip bars in the same category too. I would encourage you guys, check the racks that you can get. You're going to be able to, in most cases, find dip bars that attach. They're going to save you room as well, compared to buying like a big clunky set of parallel bars. But I would say the pull-up and dip bars, no matter how exactly you're getting them, they're stuff you definitely want to have. Now in that same vein, the morphed version of pull-up bars and dip bars at the same time is what's known as a power tower. Now assuming that your squat rack has pull-up bars at least, that's largely going to render the power tower not necessary. But if you do have issues with the height in your place, maybe you do have a pull-up bar attached, but it's just simply too high on the rack and your head starts to hit the ceiling. If you're going to buy the pull-up bars and the dip bars as separate entities, guys, I would recommend you simply purchase a power tower. Not only are you going to get the pull-up bars and the dip bars on the same device, which is going to ultimately save you space. You're not going to have to hang up pull-up bars on your wall, drill into your wall, worry about the door frame getting weaker over time or it falling off the wall, anything like that. You're going to be able to get both of these things in the same piece And the power tower also comes with a back pad that's going to allow you to do hanging leg raises, side twists, things like that too. There are a lot of good power towers on Amazon in the roughly $150 up to $200 range. These often have a lot of sales going on them too, so I'm going to put this in the worth having category. Once again, this can vary up or down based on the rack. Now we're going to take a quick moment to talk about Olympic rings. Now, rings have become very popular again. There's nothing inherently magical about rings. That said, rings are extremely cheap and very easy to set up, and they're portable. So you can do dips, push-ups, pull-ups, chin-ups, get the swivel going there. You can even do sort of like inverted chest flies with these. You can also do like kind of rear delt flies if you want to position yourself facing up toward the ceiling and pull them up higher. So these do have a good amount of uses when it comes to the upper body. So while I do think that the ring obsession is currently overblown, it's just the new thing that everybody's hopping on the bandwagon for. They're so cheap and so small, they take up no space. I would call these a perfect addition, just given those factors. And last but not least, we have every bro's biggest fear, cardio machines. So we're going to lump all these into one category. This can be treadmill, elliptical, recumbent bike, whatever. When it comes to cardio, guys, unless you can station it exactly in front of where you work, or maybe watch TV or game, or something to where you can do something more than simply just doing cardio at one time, I would say it's probably worth it then. But if we're talking practicality purposes for a home gym, a lot of these things are going to take up a decent amount of space. A lot of these treadmills now and bikes and stuff, they're not too expensive, which is good. Even then, if you're going to be spending $200 on one of these things, you can ultimately put it to better use with something else on this list. And the oldest form of cardio in the book is just walking around, right? So you can take your dog for a walk around the neighborhood. You could go for a jog if you want to do that. You could go swimming. There's all kind of ways to do cardio, guys. You don't need a specific machine to do this. It's kind of like how soccer moms drive to the gym, pay for a gym membership, they walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes, then they leave. You could have just walked around the block and saved all that money and time. I'm going to say these things are skippable. Not a bad investment if you have the money in the space. It's not a whole lot to really put into it. But we're bros here anyway. Why are you doing cardio? But there you have it, guys. That is the list. There is a lot more I could have probably included. A lot of smaller stuff. I didn't want this video to go on forever. But be sure, check different websites, set bookmarks on Amazon, check back every now and then to see when the prices drop. Be sure to measure your space, check the reviews. The home gym, guys, as I learned myself a while ago, it's much more complicated than just, oh, this has good reviews and it's very cheap and buy it. There's a lot more that goes into it, so be conscious of this process. Don't just rush through it, because I can tell you, you're going to pay on the back end. So be sure to check my Amazon store down below. I have all these things into categories. Happy hunting. But this has been it for me, guys. Thank you for sticking around. Big shout out, as always, to the Patreon supporters and the channel members. Hit me up in the links down below to get in direct contact about your own training and eating, and grab your training program. And I will catch you guys next time.